Hello and welcome to our preview show ahead of Friday night's game against Nottingham Forest. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Sky Sports presenter David Prutton, Fraizer Campbell and the Huddersfield Examiner's Stephen Chicken. How is everyone?
We're all good, it looks like. Everyone's happy and smiling, which is a very good start. So the only way is down, of course.
hopefully not. David, I'll start with you. Obviously, Nottingham Forest this weekend, a club very close to your heart. You came through the academy there.
I did. A very, very long time ago with a lot of other ugly mugs, the likes of Michael Dawson, Jermaine Jenners, Sandy Reid. Lots of very fond memories. I think where they find themselves at this moment in time is something that we're obviously going to chat about, which is needing to get up and running. Obviously, there's shades of Huddersfield Town with that as well. But it's really, really nicely set up, isn't it, for the game tomorrow? And I'm thoroughly looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The academy element was one thing that I wanted to talk about first of all with you. Obviously, you know the setup at Nottingham Forest. They've had a lot of success, haven't they, bringing players through their academy. I'm thinking over the last few seasons, the likes of Matty Cash, who's obviously left this summer, Joe Worrell, Ryan Yates, just to name a few.
Yeah, I mean, even go back to the likes of, I say going back, it's not that far, but Oliver Burke and Ben Brereton, players that are very, very good footballers. And if you look at the likes of Matty Cash, as you quite rightly said, I mean, it's generated a hell of a lot of money for the football club. And I think it's something that Forest have been very proud of for a very long period of time, and quite rightly so. It's good coaching, it's good fundamentals that are put in place from the younger age groups. I'm sure Fraizer knows exactly what that's, how important that is when it comes to developing of footballers. And I think what they've managed to set up with the backing of Nigel Doughty, God rest his soul, and what he's set up there for the future stands them in a really, really good stead. But I'm sure from a Forest fan's point of view, they want these players to stick around perhaps a bit longer to help generate some form of success, getting them back into the Premier League.
Yeah, Fraizer, that's something that we're looking at, isn't it, at Huddersfield Town? You know, in their dressing room now, there's loads of academy players since the reform that we had in the academy. How are those young lads faring and what they like in training and the dressing room?
Yeah, it's the way that the club's deciding to go in the future, which, it makes sense. A lot of clubs have had a lot of success with bringing their own through the ranks and, drip feeding them into the first team. So it's, for me, obviously being a little bit older than the rest of them, it's nice to be part of their journey. They've got a lot of the lads this season will have a great opportunity to, kickstart their careers by, getting some minutes around, the first team, that are in the first team dressing room. So it's a big step up, and they'll be tested to see whether, they're going to be good enough to make a great career from this start that they're getting. They've got a great opportunity. Hopefully a lot of them can take that, and that'll help the team, in the next, if it's not this season, next season, the up and coming seasons, to help the club progress in the right way.
Fraizer, sorry to just jump in, fellas. You're talking there about being slightly older, and obviously you could say that, and it's just slightly older than the younger players coming in. And I can now say this because I'm just slightly older than you. Does it seem, because from what I remember of being a younger player trying to get into a first team and then suddenly becoming an experienced player, to you, does that seem like it's just like a click of a finger that's gone from being like wide-eyed and innocent with the footballing world, and the next minute people are actually coming to you and saying, well, what do I do in this situation? How do I handle this?
Yeah, it's strange. A lot of clubs that I've been at have done, the Friday afternoon training or whatever. You're doing young v old. And for the longest time, it was just like, oh, it's young v old, young team over there. And you just walk straight over there. Yeah, definitely young team. But now it's young v old, and I'm just thinking, not even in that. And when you're mid-20s, 26, 27, you're like, oh, I'm unsure if I'm old or young. Now I'm just definitely in there, captain of the old boys. But yeah, you're right. It feels like it's just changed like that. And one minute you're looking up to these old boys, the people that you think were old, and now you're one of the old boys and looking at you as if to say, "Oh, he's well old." Him. They're talking about Fortnite and the latest music that's, you know, the like and stuff, and I'm miles off it. I'm old.
Have you changed at all when you've had that role? Like, as you've progressed through your career, obviously now you're saying you want to be like old boys in the team. Have you changed at all?
I don't think I've changed, but I think my opinions and my voice is heard a lot more. So, like, I might have thought the same thing when I was young, but I might have thought, well, that's not really my place to say or whatever. But now, if I see a young lad doing something, I'll say to him, "Oh, you need to, I don't know, like take the shot earlier or take more time when you're passing a ball or something." Do you know what I mean? Just little guides and tips. I don't mean like major things, just little things in and around the place to the younger players to help them, you know, to improve them as players and improve the team.
I think the thing that comes with age, and it's not only reflective in football, but obviously as we all progress and get older, you feel a bit more comfortable and more in control of what's going on, I think. Yeah. And there's an element when you're a younger player of, I don't know whether you fell into the same kind of category, Fraizer, but when, say if you had a week's worth of training or good things happened on a Saturday that went pretty well, sometimes you get your head around, oh, well, I did that last week, so I'll do this week. And almost kind of getting stuck into that superstition element of thinking that if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to play well on a Saturday. As you get older, you realise if you train right, it all sounds very boring, and I apologise for saying it. If you train right, if you do the right things more often than not, I felt towards the latter end, which is probably the real irony with being a footballer, that you only really get the gist of it when your legs are giving way and you're packing up. But it got to the point where I could go onto a pitch whenever it was on a Saturday or Tuesday night and think, I've done pretty much all I can do to make sure that I'm going to be all right. So the boss is going to get, hopefully, at least a 6. Anything other than that, especially for me, was always a good thing. But so you went on the pitch feeling very much in control of what was going on. Yes, there's another 21 players that all want to have a good game, but you boxed off what you could do. Are you in that position now, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. When I was younger, like you said, you know, your sleeping just things like sleeping pattern would be all over the place. But because I was young, I didn't really need much sleep. So, you know, I didn't really look at it in the opposite terms of, you know, if I can work well on this amount of sleep, then maybe if I have more sleep, I'll be even better. So, you know, you're young, aren't you? You're naive, and you've got to learn that. But, you know, hopefully having the experienced players around as well will help them learn that quicker, you know, because you often see that the lads that break onto the scene when they're youngest are the ones that act more mature, you know, they've got that better physique or whatever, they're more developed than the rest of the players, and it's that kind of forward thinking that can help you, you know, progress your career quicker rather than, you know, later on in life.
No, it's not something you experienced, but do you think for the lads coming from another country as well, particularly sort of some of the younger ones, that is an extra layer of difficulty as well for players to get used to?
You mean like living?
Yeah, just in general, on the pitch, off the pitch, everything.
Yeah, I went on loan to Belgium, and you know it's a completely different culture there. Obviously, even just driving on the other side of the road is different. Do you know what I mean? So it's, you know, you're young, you're moving to a foreign country. It takes time to settle. But like I said, if you've got experienced people around you or people that have been in the UK for a bit longer than you have, you know, you can always pick and choose and learn off them. And hopefully there's enough players or enough support for the young lads that are playing in different countries that can, you know, help them adapt as quickly as possible. And, you know, you're young, you're not really bothered about your surroundings too much. You're young, you're enjoying life, whatever. So hopefully, you know, they'll because we've got a few young foreign lads in the team, they can do really well this year or in the future, whatever.
Did you pick up much Dutch?
Sorry to interrupt, Steve, but Fraizer was going abroad before it was fashionable. The likes of Joe, all that type of stuff. Been there, seen it, done it.
Oh yeah, Yeah, it feels like it was about 4 years ago. It was like 15 years ago. Wow.
Did you pick up much Dutch while you're over there?
Not that I want to repeat.
Some shocking words for Carol Lighton in the training pitch this week.
I can imagine, David Fraizer, when you were in an academy setup and breaking through into a first team, if more experienced players said to you or gave you some words of advice or said you'd done something well, that would mean a lot to you and would help you progress faster.
Yeah, definitely. Like
it
me,
was great. That was the carrot, wasn't it, really, that you chased? Go on, Fred, after you, mate.
No, let you go first. Go on.
No, it was that was the carrot that you kind of chased. It was that and the boss being nice to you, which sounds pathetic. And again, as you got older, the way that the boss manifested itself being nice to you was picking you, and then you realise that that's really the only validation that you need, that you play in the game that's coming up. And with it's changed slightly, and I think it has changed slightly for the better because of the type of people that are coming through football. But I'm sure it's something that Fraizer can probably relate to. Is the well done you got from the older pros? It wasn't necessarily well done. It was just less abuse on a daily basis with regard to how they were looking at you within the first team setup. What you had to do when you came through the door was make sure that you trained right, and when you got the chance to play, that you played right, that you approached the game properly. Then after that, you start to fit in and try and be yourself, and whether that meant that lads took a bit more time to get used to you, or you got all the classic kind of new boy type stuff thrown your way until they realise and firmly grasp you as one of their own, which I think back then you classically call character building. There's other words for it now, probably a bit more sinister, but
bullying.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, I understandably society's changed over the course of the last 20 odd years, 25 years, which we of course we all understand. But that was what it was, and it was again the validation from the older pros was making sure that on a pitch everyone had mutual respect for what you were both doing, and that's when I don't know about you, Fraizer, but that's when you felt most at home, was when you felt part of that team, which is what we all crave, I think.
Yeah, I just echo what David said. Like, obviously, when I started at Man United, I was a Man United fan. So for me to get a well done from the manager or the likes of you Rio Ferdinand, something like that, would, it'd make my day. But like you said, it was a well done, but not over the top. It was, urea through merit. You need to do your job. So this is just the standard of what you should be doing. And it's not until you start playing the games and doing on a regular basis that you start to be part of the gang. And I never really got that. I'd never stayed there that long enough. But when I went on loan to Hull, it was similar. You had boys like Ian Ashby and Dean Windass, part of the old school veterans who would just hammer you constantly. But once you start playing in the team,
that is the toughest of tough schools, that one. My God, wow.
Yeah, once you start playing the team and scoring, and you're not just this little kid from Manchester who thinks he's better than everyone else, you're part of the gang. It was all right. You're just going to get a few slaps over there.
Fraizer, I'm fascinated, but whenever it comes to, I've not got any allegiance to any football team at all, but I was always fascinated by, obviously, the Man United side of all the way through the 90s, what they managed to achieve. And I just, having spoken to Steve McLaren and had the pleasure of his company for a little bit, and it fascinates me. And you say you got a little touch of it, and you mentioned like Rio Ferdinand. When I think about coming through at Forest, which at the time was a championship club, whereas Manchester United, one of the biggest juggernauts in modern day, not even in modern day football, but in world football over the course of the history of how much we've loved the game. Everything that I read, everything that I see, when you read about Alex Ferguson, when you read about the class of '92, all that type of stuff, it seems to me it was a perfect storm of, you had a ferocious manager that knew how to push the players, but you had a ferocious bunch of players that set their own standards. And I'm fascinated because as much as football is very accessible to all, I think elite dressing rooms such as that, I think they're they're a combination of chemistry and timing and history coming together to create something truly unique. And on a daily basis, was it as intense as everyone was saying and making out?
Yeah. It was one of them where obviously you're a young lad coming through, and obviously added to it that I was a Man United fan. I used to dread going out to training in the morning. Like I used to have butterflies in my stomach, knowing that we're doing the boxes in the morning. If I messed up in a box, somebody was letting me know about it for the rest of the day, kind of thing. You have people like Roy Keane there, but like you said, the manager set the tone, but the players also, they just maintain the standards. So nothing, you could get away with nothing. You couldn't let your standards slip for 5 minutes because they'd be on you. They'd be on each other. So if Gary Neville can have a go at Paul Scholes, then young Fraizer Campbell's got no chance. So it was a pressure cooker. But that's why teams like that, win games, win titles, because it's not only is it expected from the top down, it's expected from the players, the coaching staff. Everyone there's got their own standards, and if you're not meeting the standards, then you're out the door. Don't matter who you are.
I'm interested, how does that relate to Huddersfield Town, and in particular Jonathan Hogg?
Yeah, Jonathan Hogg is Roy Keane. He will 2-foot you in your neck if you're not listening to him. No matter if you're 32, 18, no matter, anyone can get it.
Steve, obviously relating this back to Huddersfield Town, we've seen on the pitch at Brentford as well, Richard Stearman was coaching Romany Critchlow through the game, Jayden Brown, who's played a little bit in the Championship last season as well. But you can see it happening in game, can't you? And the fruits of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not all going to come at once, but I'm sure Fraizer will be directing play from the front as well, depending on who's either side of him, because everyone's got something to learn from the more experienced players. So whether that's Josh Garoma or Adama Diakabi, I'm sure there's plenty that you can pass on. And as you mentioned Hoggy there, he's always directing, he's always shouting, he's always sort of being that extra voice on the pitch, and I think that's really important. We've talked before about this, I think, but when you're playing behind closed doors, you need to have someone sort of driving that adrenaline up. I think maybe that's something that the team missed a little bit against Brentford at times, to be perfectly honest, that little bit of spark and adrenaline. And I think having the players on the pitch who have the personalities and also the experience to drag everyone through and drag everyone up and get that extra sort of 5-10% out of everyone can be really important, and will be really important this season.
How are you feeling now, Fraizer? Fitness-wise, physically?
Yeah, fine. I've been training with the team now for the last just under 2 weeks, so it's going well. It's like anyone, you've got to learn the manager's new way of playing, what you expect from me in certain situations. So it's still all a learning curve, and at the same time as that, you've, like we've been talking about, you've got to try and make sure the younger lads are, know their roles as well. So you got to try and help everyone as well as knowing it yourself. So it's going as well as it can be. I've played a couple of minutes in the last 2 games. I'm getting fitter and sharper each training session and stuff. So hopefully I can start playing and having a bigger impact on our results.
From the glimpses of training that I've seen and that we've put out on our own channels, it seems really high intensity, short bursts of games. How does the training that we have now under Carlos Corberán compare to what you've had in the past in terms of the intensity, the drills, the competitiveness?
Yeah, it is intense, yeah. It's either you're sprinting or you're walking, which is basically what I do in a game anyway. So for me, it's like the perfect training session, just doing what I do on a weekend. So but yeah, like you said, it's all passages of play. You don't do things for very long. You do one passage of play, then you'll maybe do the other side, then you'll go over to something else. So he's trying to get his ideas and beliefs over to the lads and what we should do in certain situations. And it's not been long. It's been here 5 weeks, something like that. So it's going to take time over the course of the season, but the signs, parts of the games that we've played already that, we've played some decent stuff, and I've seen, recognise some stuff that we've done on the training pitch that's come out on a match day. So, that's all positive things. It's just, now you want some guys to get a bit of fitness behind the legs, played a few games, now he can get some consistency, and hopefully, people can start stepping up and putting in some really good performances.
Is it all kind of training ground based, Fraizer? Are there a lot of meetings? We know a footballer's approaches and thought process when it comes to interminable amounts of meetings at times, isn't it? But is it all very practical? Because from what you hear about his time with Marcelo at Leeds, it was all very, it was all outside. It was all very boxed up. It was right. We're going to do this on this pitch, on the stopwatch, done. Over here, we're going to do this bit. Over here, we're going to do. Are there similarities with what perhaps has gone before at Leeds, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. But like I said, you'll do about 12 different things. But you said, like, on the stopwatch, you'll move here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, I think at the start, like now at the beginning, where everyone's trying to learn these things, I think we'll do a lot of meetings just to get that in there. But once that's in there, I think like you said, it'd be more outdoor practical stuff rather than being sat in front of a screen showing us what he wants. But it's going well. Like I said, I've seen bits from training in games, and that's what you want to see. You want to see progression of the training sessions into the match situations. And like I said, hopefully we can find his feet sooner rather than later.
What are the main differences been in terms of sort of focus and the way that things are done from the previous regimes and previous managers you've worked under?
Well, I think Carlos is big on, pressing, winning the ball back as high up the pitch as possible, man for man type of mentality. I don't know if you watched the last couple of games, but Toffs, sometimes you'll see, obviously Toffs is our left back. He was playing right wing for 5 minutes on Saturday. So, people are staying with a man, going where they need to be, but also everyone's learning everyone's role. So if you're left back and you end up right wing, then obviously there's a big gap at left back. So which players need to shuffle across and things like that. So, it's a lot. It's good and it's exciting football. But like I said, it's early stages yet. We need to keep belief in the philosophy and keep putting it into practice, and hopefully we'll build up a run of form and win some games.
You're obviously presumably hoping to add something in attack because it's still without a goal so far, aren't you? So I mean, how do you turn that around?
We'd like to score the season, yeah. Like I said, you can't get frustrated with the process. You just got to keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully, we'll create some chances. Keep creating chances. If you keep creating chances, no one's ever been the whole season without scoring. So I'm sure we'll get our goal very soon.
Let's err on the side of optimism.
Ambitious, yeah.
We'll get one or two, I'm sure.
David, you'll be able to give us an insight into this. Obviously, from your playing days, when you've got a new manager who's come in, he's brought a completely new style in. How long does it take you to get to grips to that new style? Bear in mind, obviously, Carlos Corberán came to Huddersfield Town at the end of last season. He's had a really short pre-season. A lot of players picked up injuries during pre-season, the likes of Fraizer, Jonathan Hogg, Christopher Schindler, big players for us. Not that I'm trying to make excuses, and I'm just trying to find a reasoning of how long you think from your playing days it would take to grasp a completely different style.
Well, it's not excuses. It's the genuine reasons. The players that are kind of big focal points in the side, that if they're missing, then obviously people step in and try and fill the gap. But the reason that we know and appreciate people like Fraizer and Christopher and the players that you talked about is because they're well known enough to know that they're there and they perform consistently. And it also depends how good the players are when it comes to putting over new ideas. I'm sure Fraizer would relate to the fact that up and down the footballing pyramid, what happens is as you get further to the top, and why obviously there's a whole other debate about the size of the remuneration that top level players get, but that's to do with a lot of other dynamics. But they do get paid to be reliable. They get paid to be consistent. They might not all be able to do what Messi does, but the manager knows that 7 or 8 out of 10 every week is what he's going to get, and what ideas he puts across go in pretty quickly. And we all learn in different ways. Some are more practical, as Fraizer was talking about, the practicality of showing players where to be and showing them on kind of more of a digital kind of approach is another slightly newer way of putting ideas across. But I think it does depend on the personnel and also that bass swing. And I thought Stephen put it really well, because when you look at he's mentioned other managers, but if you look at how the Cowleys approach football, and even they've evolved in the time that I've been watching their sides, because you look at the side that they had at Lincoln, that was built to do a certain thing, which was to help Lincoln progress back into the Football League. And I remember watching them against Chelsea's under-21s, I think it had been, in whatever incarnation of the EFL trophy it's called nowadays. But that was an absolute assault on the senses. Nathan Aki played at centre-half, and fair play to him. Everything that came up, he was chucking his head on it, and he was up against Matt Reed, who he's probably never seen a footballer that looks like Matt Reed before in academy football, thinking, what? And he was great, and it was a real learning curve. But as Lincoln progressed, so did I felt Danny and his brother did. And I think coming to Huddersfield, and again, like I said, with what how Stephen was asking the question, is there's a certain stereotype with the way that perhaps Danny is deemed to set up a football side, and now Carlos has come with that kind of Bielsa stardust. We'll see how that imprints on this Huddersfield Town side. But the most important thing, as we all know, is results. It's nice if it looks pretty sexy, but it looks better when you've got the points to back up what you've been doing, and you are incrementally moving up through the division.
Absolutely, because it is completely different, isn't it, Fraizer? It's basically going from being a space marking team to a man marking 1v1 all over the pitch.
Yeah, like I said, you wouldn't have seen Toffs playing right wing last season, and I've seen it on numerous occasions in the last 2 games. So it's going to take time. It's completely different. Players need to learn the roles and what's expected of them. But they seem like we're a pretty bright bunch, so pick it up quickly, hopefully, and hopefully we'll be playing some sexy stuff with points to go with it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Steve, obviously, to help with that and the new style, hopefully we'll be able to see 2 new players, Carol Eiting and Naby Sarr. How impressed have you been with bringing them into the club, the new signings?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a bit of them on Y Scout. I've watched a few clips. I've looked at the stats. Carlos said earlier in the press conference that Naby Sarr is a bit more of a risk just for this game specifically, just because he's only had 2 days training after being in self-isolation, but that Carol Eiting is a little bit more up to speed because he's had a full pre-season with Ajax, and he sort of seemed to imply as well that there are certain players who come from certain systems and should be able to slot straight in. And I imagine he's talking about Carol Eiting there, because the way that Ajax set up and have midfielders dropping into the, alongside the back 2 and then peeling off and rejoining the midfield, which we saw a lot of in pre-season. We're not seeing quite so much of it in the championship so far, but we saw a lot of it in pre-season. That's exactly what Ajax do, and that's what Carol Eiting could bring to the team. But he also, Carlos indicated that Eiting can play as a number 8 as well. We might see him play further up the pitch. We know that he's, if you look at his expected assists and his number of key passes that he makes in the final third, for all he's played a lot as a 6 for Ajax, he's much more box to box than that would imply. And his final delivery into the box looks to be stellar. He seems to particularly like crossing from sort of either crossing or playing lofted through balls from sort of a central position slightly on the left. He is left-footed. And that could make a huge difference to the way that Town play. We saw that they struggled to sort of build the play against Brentford last week, and having him in the side could make a big difference, as could Naby Sarr. If you look at Naby Sarr's stats, the number of times that he tries to carry the ball into the opposition half, I think it's more than Stearman and Schindler combined per 90 minutes. So it's a very different style of centre-back. He's much more of a ball player. He's much more comfortable carrying the ball into the opposition half and playing passes from there. So it could make a fundamental difference to what we've seen over the last couple of games.
What have you seen from him in training, Fraizer, albeit, especially in Naby's case, a very select number of training sessions?
Yeah, I've not seen much of Naby. Obviously, I know I've seen him play like on TV and stuff like that. I've not really had much time with him on the training pitch. But yeah, he's an absolute unit. Going for a 50-50 with him.
For a defender, isn't it?
Yeah, he looks like an animal, and hopefully he can get up to speed quickly and be part of the squad, because like I say, he's got experience in this level in the English league, so it's be a good player. And Carroll will be from Ajax. Obviously he's technically he knows how to play football, is what you'd expect from any player coming from Ajax. I've had a few training sessions with him, and he looks neat and tight on the ball. Like I said, he plays the six, but he looks like he can find that final pass. So he could play higher up the pitch as well. He'd be another good option for the squad. He's a young lad as well. He looks he doesn't look. I know that he wants to learn. He wants to know from the staff around the place what can each of the staff do to help make him a better player. He's only 20, 21, is he?
22.
22, so he's only a young lad, and he's asking questions on how he can improve. So that's the type of youngster or any kind of player that you want to have in and around on the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's David. Go on.
Sorry, yeah, I was just something that the way that Stephen had said that just kind of pricked in your head. It's funny because we're all sat here chatting, and it's very genial, and it's whipping along, and it's great fun, and you almost in any chat with football at this point in time, you kind of once you get stuck into talking about it, you lose yourself and you come away from the facts of what's going on in a global sense for just a few minutes, which is a nice way just to come away from reality for a bit. But when Stephen said there about a player coming in and having like the quarantine rules and how they have got to work the way into being ready to be able to interact with the rest of the squad, I'm just intrigued from Fraser's point of view, and you guys have been in and around the football club, but from us, from the outside looking in, because I've been asked it a few times, coming off the back of lockdown and moving back into the season, then coming back after a very short off season to an even shorter pre-season into another season. People say, "Oh, what would it be like as a player?" And it's got to the point where I'm like, I have absolutely no clue whatsoever what it would be like, because the longest period that you would have out would be injury. Touch wood, that never happened too many times. And off the back of the rest of it, not a clue. I've got no idea what it would be like for a footballer in this kind of situation. What is it like, Fraizer? Does everyone just get on with it? Is it now, as they say, the new normal?
Yeah.
And is it just day-to-day life for you lot?
It's basically the new norm. And, you went through a stage where the announcements were getting made regularly and you just didn't know what was happening from day to day. Obviously, we had the initial lockdown. Everyone was at home. We got sent our gym programs. You was in the gym every day doing your own thing. We had a few Zoom calls, like doing actual upper bodies and core sessions and stuff like that, just so we kept some kind of connection with each other. Once it eased off, you could go back in small groups. So it's like groups of 4, but you had to turn up in your training kit, turn up at the side of the pitch, literally go on the pitch, do your session. Before you're on the pitch, but you were miles away from each other. No real banter, no real chatting. So you're just doing an individual session basically. Then that'd finish. As you were getting there, a group would be finishing before you. Then you'd get there, they'd be going. Then as you were finished, another group would be turning up. You'd no showers, no food, just get in your car, drive home. So then obviously the increase of size and the training sessions got bigger, and eventually we got back to playing games. But there's no fans. I know you probably played in-house games, and it's just like dead and flat, and that's how it feels when you're in the stadium. But it's obviously the stadiums are bigger, so it's just more echoey everywhere. It's there's no atmosphere at all. So usually when someone gets a bad tackle or everyone's like shouting and stuff, it's very flat. But like you said, it's just become the new norm. Like you're walking around the building like today, and there's numbers on the door like max capacity 3 people. So you got to look in a room before you go in. Everyone's got the masks on. You can only have a certain amount of people in the canteen. You've got to stagger lunchtime. We've got tents outside because the changing room's not big enough for all the players. So some people are outside in like a marquee. It's just part of it now, and there's nothing we can do. We just gotta deal with it. But it is.
That'll be interesting when winter blows through West Yorkshire.
Winter's here. Winter is here.
Don't get a summer in Yorkshire.
We had a meeting at 1:45, and I'd just come in from training at like 12:20, so I'm still wet. Didn't have enough time to have a shower. Sat in it's like a fridge. Just sat there, just thinking, I can't wait to get out of this meeting. Just get me in a hot shower quick. Yeah, it's not ideal. They didn't think it through. The heaters are coming soon, apparently.
Yeah, whenever soon is.
Yeah, it needs to be soon because we're in September and it's absolutely freezing.
You can imagine, Steve, as well. It's even harder in this situation for Naby Sarr. Obviously, we signed him from Charlton, but because he was a free agent, he went back home, back to France. Obviously wasn't in a professional sport environment, so had to quarantine due to the government guidelines when he came back over. You can't imagine being a professional in that environment. You've just signed for a new club and you're confined to being on a bike in a hotel room.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like he's just been sitting in a hotel room on his own with instructions from the fitness coach, which is, a bit of a nightmare. It's like a step up from playing Wii Fit, isn't it? But it's yeah. I mean, God, it must be really difficult in a situation like that. And when you sign for a new club, I imagine half the fun is the excitement of like getting into the training ground for the first time, meeting your teammates, and all of that kind of thing. And then you have to wait 2 weeks to do it. He's not had he didn't get a photo shoot when he first signed. It was all pictures of him in his Charlton gear, and it just, I don't know, it just puts a bit of a dampener on everything, and everyone's just wanting to see him in action. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but it's we're all having to get used to things like this, unfortunately, aren't we?
Yeah, I can see you smiling away there, Fraizer.
Well, speaking of him, I tested him out today. He's a big lad. I thought I'm gonna stick it on his toes here. So I came in the dressing room, and he was sat in my locker. So I just walked up to him and like, "What are you doing, sat there?" I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'll get up and move about." I'm only joking. Say what you want, pal. 1-0 Campbell.
He's now gone back to his hotel room and jumped on his bike.
David, obviously we have to talk about Nottingham Forest. They lost their opening 2 games. Do you think last season is playing in the back of their minds almost? Obviously to miss out on the playoffs the way they did, to have that shorter pre-season. Normally in pre-season you can go away, forget, recharge mentally, physically. They didn't have that this year. Had probably 2 weeks break straight back in. It must weigh a little bit in their minds.
I think it does. When we were doing the game last week, so the Cardiff game, we were looking at their coming back from lockdown, their end of the season, getting back into this season, and there is a common thread with it. The inconsistency that they've shown. It was a poor first half last time out, which was compounded by having a great chance for Lewis Grabban, who didn't manage to score a goal that we've seen him score so many times across the course of his career. And then they had a chance in the second half, which would have obviously not restored parity, but given him a foothold in the game. So it's being as effective as you possibly can in the two boxes, which they weren't. They didn't defend accordingly, and nor were they clinical. So there's plenty for them to be kind of mulling over at the start of this season. And I think you talk about hangover of that ridiculous final day, the swing that was involved. And the sooner that 3 points gets chalked on the board, then that gives them a sense of working their way back from that. And again, we've mentioned fans not being in and around the stadium. I think it's a very fine line where at the moment in time you wonder whether they'd help or hinder, because a performance such as the first 45 on Saturday would have drawn all kinds of boos, etc., going in at half time. But it would have been a collective kick up the backside to get them going again. So it's a tricky situation to find themselves in. And I'm not saying Sabri's under more pressure than any other manager in the Championship. That they're only a certain run of games away from being in a sticky situation. But he's made some changes. They've had a very active transfer window so far. And now is the time that these performances need to come as the results do as well.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, they brought in loads of Championship experience, even in the last 3-4 days, haven't they? Harry Arter, Cyrus Christie.
Yeah, 11 signings I think they've made in total. It's a lot of business. It's way more than I think the average for the Championship is just under 5. So it's a lot of players to be bringing in, and we've seen that can go either way, because you've got, I mean, it's something Lee Bromby talked about on this show last week. If you bring in a lot of players and you try to integrate them all at once, sometimes that can actually have a negative effect. So it's in some ways they're in a sort of a similar position to Town, although they've still got the same manager, and they're coming off a very different season. It's almost a new squad and a new start for them as well, and it's going to take them, I mean, as we're already seeing from their results, it's going to take them time to get used to this new setup, this new group of players.
In terms of style, David, against Cardiff, was it very much counter-attack, hit on the break that we could expect now?
Well, it depends. If you don't want the first, then for that type of style of football, other than passive, or it's not something that Forest fans would be very proud of watching or seeing. They seem to, when we looked at the course of, as we love stats at Sky, don't we? As we looked at the course of their results last season, I think it was only maybe twice at a push that they actually won a game with more than 50% possession, which does strike me as a team that likes to play counter-attacking football. I think the introduction of Lyle Taylor gives them another string to the bow going forward. He's not scared to run the channels or put the legwork in to get in and beyond an opposition defence. But they play in a way that perhaps classically suits the team away from home, that counter-attack, but more often than not, they try and employ it at home as well. So in a game like the Cardiff game, Cardiff have got different ways of playing, and I think they've really evolved under Neil Harris. And they were a very tough proposition, and Forest just couldn't handle them. So if you've got a Forest side that is, say, going into the game against Huddersfield, and Huddersfield are very much set up, as Fraser's talking about, with that 1v1 battle all over the pitch. Firstly, get the tactics out of the way. It's whether those Forest players will be up for it. And they've got no other choice. They have to be up for it, because if you've got two teams that haven't been able to register anything so far, something's got to give, you feel. And if Forest aren't ready for what Huddersfield perhaps throw at them, it could be a very long evening.
I can imagine, Fraizer, obviously the first goal we conceded against Brentford was being caught on the counter when we were playing the 1v1. That's what we really have to be careful about, isn't it, against Nottingham Forest, if they do, in fact, play in that style?
Yeah, there's always risks when, you're trying to press high up the pitch and go man for man. If they beat your press and they play some good stuff, you're always going to be exposed somewhere. So, we've got to you've got to take risks, to get anywhere in the game. So we've got to, like I said before, believe in what we're doing, not get paranoid or scared when things are not going quite so well. We just got to believe in what the manager's telling us and keep going for it. And sooner rather than later, we'd rather get some points. But yeah, hopefully we can put on a good show and play some good stuff and just enjoy ourselves and take some points out of the game.
Fraizer, given how hectic it's been and how much exposure there is, because obviously no one's in a ground watching football, it's hopefully as much on TV as it possibly can be. When it comes to playing a team like Forest and knowing kind of what they're like, and you've got a lot of experience, as we said, in knowing these football teams that you're going to be playing more often than not, how much focus do you put on them individually? Would you kind of have a good, obviously you'll have a meeting about what's perhaps coming and what team they might perhaps put out, but I presume the names that we're talking about, a lot of them are second nature to you, having been in and around English football for so long. So you go into it kind of knowing what the inherent threat is. Yeah,
that's the thing with having your experience. You know what you're getting into. Very rarely things come out and surprise you. So it's just focus on myself really. As long as I know that I'm, like we spoke about before, as long as I've done my things right this week, I know I'm all right. I'm going to be all right on Friday night this week. But it's you know what you're coming up against. I've been in this league a few years now, so I know what to expect and how I can better the opposition. So hopefully I've had me good 9 hours sleep and I'll do well on Friday.
Not the 6 you would have had 10 years ago.
Yeah, not the 6.
And Steve, obviously last year we beat Nottingham Forest at home, scored 2 goals from set pieces, played very well that day. A lot's changed since then, but I just wanted to pick up on the set piece element. Our best chance against Brentford came from a set piece. How impressed have you been with the different routines that we've been putting in games that are ultimately, like the Bakuna one, creating us some chances?
Yeah, there was some from Harry Toffolo as well in an earlier game that should have gone in. I mean, ultimately you've got to start sticking them in the net is the issue. Yeah, I mean, it was a big area of weakness last season at both ends of the pitch, and there's a lot of areas for an improvement, but that's one where you can add. I think I worked out if you just got up to, I say just as that's that easy, but if you got up to the sort of the average championship level at both ends, then that would have been worth like between 8 and 12 points last season, something like that. It's quite a big difference that you can get from that improvement. And again, we've talked a lot about what a big unit Naby Sarr is. He's 6'5", and he's gonna come in, and I'm sure that he's going to be one of the players who's going to be looking to get his head on the end of them. And Carol Lighting, when he was playing in the Champions League earlier this season, he was taking the set pieces for Ajax in the Champions League knockout round. So we know that he can deliver a ball as well. So hopefully there'll be a bit of improvement this season.
That's the great thing, isn't it, with football as well? Because we're looking at that, and as you say, Steve, there'll be the hulking great figure of different personnel. But again, the Forest last time out against Cardiff, Kiefer Moore, I mean, he walks onto a football pitch. You'd like to think there's a common kind of responsibility there of, if it comes to set pieces, lads, look how big he is. And things will never change. I mean, we can make it as deep thinking and as sexy as possible, but decent ball into the box to a man that's bigger than everyone else, he's got more of a chance of being able to get the ball in the back of the net. So something perhaps for Huddersfield from the point of view of not necessarily a team being unable of dealing with the threat, but being wise to what's going on, not being kind of streetwise in a sense of, I know I might be marking this player, but there might be a bit of a height disparity, but I'm going to do everything within my power to make sure that you don't get on the end of it. And something perhaps, as you're saying, Stephen, that the Huddersfield Town squad in both boxes take responsibility on going forward in the season.
Yeah. You would hope so. And as I say, it's quite an obvious sort of area for improvement. And it's it could make a big difference to him if you can get that right. So, but I mean, it's also, you know, open play as well. You know, there's improvements to be made there. I think that there were times against Brentford where sort of it sort of stayed in the defence quite a lot. It wasn't getting up the pitch, and I think a couple of times people just sort of tried long balls over the top, just sort of speculatively, to sort of try and break the cycle. And it's a case of getting up to speed with that as well, and getting everyone used to the new system, and getting used to building out from the back again. Because it's something that at times last season, that, you know, that there were games where things were a little bit more direct, or the game plan was to sit deep and then try and catch people on the counter. I think Carlos Corberán, from what we've seen, seems to like his defence to push up a bit and, you know, try and play on the halfway line. And Brentford didn't allow Town to do that, but hopefully going forward they'll get more and more comfortable pushing forward and building the play like that.
As much as I'm really enjoying this chat, we'll have to draw it to an end. So, David, I'll leave you with a final say. Obviously, two teams without a win, no goals for either side. Statistically, doesn't
Don't
make
ask me who's going to win. Don't ask me who's going to
excellent
win.
viewing. I'm not. Don't worry. No. Statistically, it doesn't make for excellent viewing. However, everything we've discussed here, it could be a really interesting and exciting game, couldn't it?
It could. I was doing our podcast on, I think it was Monday, and Jonathan Oakes, who I'm sure you've come across at Grounds, and our roving reporter, thoroughly lovely chap.
Yeah,
he is, and he prefaced the chat with saying it's been 0-0. I don't know how, some ridiculous stat about how it just made it sound horrendous. I was like, well done, Oaksley. That'll get everyone involved on Friday night to watch the game. But no, it absolutely has, because going off what Fraizer said, I'm really intrigued to see how this kind of way of playing manifests itself. I really enjoyed, toward the back end of last season, the games that we covered. I mean, specifically the West Brom game obviously sticks out, which, I mean, as much as it might stick in the craw of Terriers fans, gave Leeds an almighty leg up over the course of that weekend. But it was, they were great, and again, when we talk about being effective in both boxes, that's exactly what Town were that night, and against one of the best sides in the Championship. So maybe personnel, slight nuances with that has changed, but there's absolutely nothing to fear, nor should, and I mean this with the greatest respect to Huddersfield Town and what they've done so far, nor should there be anything to fear for Nottingham Forest. So in theory, if we're sat here as neutrals, what you get is two teams going at it head to head, and hopefully something pretty spectacular, because as we've seen coming back into this season, and as Fraser's alluded to it, there was that slight lull in the games towards the back end of last season, but seems everyone's gone goal crazy. We did come in the Carabao Cup last night and trying to keep up with the scorers, and it's just bonkers. So, forgive me for saying this, but I hope it's something like 4-3. But I'm not going to say who to, so we'll say tomorrow.
We know. Thanks.
There we go. David expects it to be a really exciting game. Huddersfield Town fans, if you're a season card holder, then you can watch the match on iFollow HTAFC. If not, of course, it's live on Sky Sports. David, Fraizer, Steve, thank you very much for joining us, and fingers crossed it's an enjoyable match for all of us.